Thank you, Sasha. My name is Muhammad Hamid Hagar. I'm joining on today's presentation with my chief, Alessandro Alasia, as well as my colleague, Jackie Ha. Today's presentation is going to be about the program that has been put in place almost 2 years ago. This Rural Data Initiative started with the seed fund. And the goal was, to be able to fill data gap, especially in rural area. Last year, Red joined us in this initiative. So we've been working on a few pillars that we pick after consultation during the initial years with many rural stakeholders, academia, policymakers. And without further ado, I'm going to jump to the presentations. Today's presentation is about data for rural community, building initiative approach for rural data in Canada. So to walk you through this presentation, I would like just to start by giving an overview. The first point that I want to tackle is going to start discussing what characterize rural data disaggregations. Then I'm following by presenting the work that has been completed during the fiscal the first years of this rural data initiatives, and then we will discuss the work plan for this fiscal year, as well as how are we planning to move forward. And lastly, we conclude the presentation by describing the next step for continuing disaggregating data. It's important to start by defining what is rurals. In short, there is no definitive answer to that. There is no, clear definition of what is meant by rurals. This depends on how you planning to tackle the issue. Either you look at the local, community level, or regional level. But the appropriate definition should be determined by the question that has been raised. That means, it's not, like I mentioned, it's not clear definition of rurals. However, national statistics across the globe typically define a rural along three dimensions. These three dimensions being, population size, population density, distance to agglomeration, and depending on how you are aggregating these, may result in different rural landscape and different rural opportunity and challenge. Within Statistics Canada, there is two prevailing definitions that is used. The standard definition that was derived from the census of populations, and this rely on the population size as well as the densities, population size of 1,000 people and more, and within a density of 400 people per square kilometers. These definitions, the one derived from the standard definition, actually include all the commuting zone of metropolitan regions. The second definition that is also adopted within StatCan is the one basically we use, the rural and small town. The rural and small town definition put greater emphasis on the distance from metropolitan area. And this definition, is basically concentrate on area outside the CMA and CA. But it includes a small population center outside the commuting zone of central metropolitan area. So it exclude the rural area inside the CMA-CA. So as you can see from the map presented here, the three top arrow pointing to the population centers, as you can see by the size of where they're pointing. But the bottom one is the type of definition that we use. That is the one is based on the rural and small towns. So what kind of data that are most important for a rural audience. Typically, businesses, organization in rural area, they are interested in the same type of information as the rest of Canadians. And this may span from demography to economic, environment, and so on. So as I mentioned earlier, we started this rural data initiative during the fiscal year 2021. And, to help the need for rural data and analysis, we started by launching the Rural Canada Statistical Portals. This statistical portal serve as a focal point for rural data produced by Statistic Canada Rural Data Initiative team, as well as bringing also data that are being produced within Statistic Canada that have rural links. And the focus here is to facilitate access and and dissemination of rural-related statistics. In addition to the Rural Canada Statistical Portal, during the fiscal year, the initial years of the Rural Data Initiative, we produce also analysis based on the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. We produce 4 analysis based on each wave of the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. We built also a database that is called the Rural Canada Business Profiles. And in addition to that, also we launched a data visualization tools. This data visualization tools encompasses rural employment as well as unemployment. And in terms of outreach and communication activity during the first years, we held a workshop, jointly with CENRED, OECD, as well as United Nations. And this workshop actually was held almost 2 years ago now. And the main subject of this workshop was open data for rural community measuring access to services. So as you can see here, this is the rural portals, and this can be accessible just by Googling, and you will be able to find additional information that are, embedded in this rural Canada statistical portals. The Canadian Survey on Business Conditions is a survey that has been put in place during the pandemic. And the main idea of this survey is to provide timely and detailed information on the environment in which business are operating and their, prospect for the short to medium run. So this includes information such as the business adaptation and adjustment, business performance, labors, and so on. So as you can see, the key insight from the fourth quarter of 2022, you see here the bar, actually the blue one show, the result for the rurals, and the orange is for the urban. So among the top 4 obstacles for rural business over the next 3 months, as you can see here, rising inflation come first, following by rising cost of input, transportation cost, and rising interest rate and debt cost. During the first year, as I mentioned, we also launched the Rural Canada Business Profile. The Rural Canada Business Profile is more concentrated on a small and medium-sized enterprise. And in this database, there is a lot of, business performance benchmark information that can be, extracted from this database. And this is grouped by profitable and non-profitable business as well as by NAICS. So to give you just a sense of the last release for 2020 that we released at the beginning of this calendar years, as you can see from the chart, there were about 300,000 small businesses located in rural area in 2020. and this comprise of almost 16% of all small businesses in Canada. In terms of medium size, located in rural area, they were just above 7,500 and making about up to 15% of medium size businesses in Canada. Another fact that, is being observed, importantly, I forget to mention that, during the first year we release in this database in the Rural Canada business profile data from 2017 to 2019, and this year actually we released the 2020. And by seeing, the trend, we observed that, the number of small businesses declined since 2019. It declined by 4.1% in the rural area and 4.9% in urban area. The dashboard that we released during the initial years of this rural data initiative is basically borrow heavily from the LFS, the labor force surveys. And as you can see here, this, is just to profile, to give you a sense of, employment and unemployment in rural area. And the rural area definition that we use is the one for the rural and the small towns. So this data is basically monthly and annual data available from 2011 onward, and is grouped by geography as well as by NAICS. So for the current fiscal years, the ending fiscal year, we took on a few type of initiative. We continued on the Canadian business survey on business condition by breaking down, urban rural dimensions, and other pillar that we took on also during this fiscal year is the quality of life. And, our intent is to be able to develop rural proximity measure aligned with the quality of life framework. The key dimension that is used in this quality of life is special accessibility to services and amenities such as schools, healthcare, public transit. And we're discussing for the next release, we are planning actually to include such as a fire department, police stations, and so on. A rural snapshot. This is reporting a key economic and social indicators. For this fiscal year, actually, we're planning to cover housings. So in this database, we're building a database to put out earlier next fiscal years. And this database is comprised of information from the housing program as well as from building permit and residential investment. So this database is going to contain a lot of detailed information related to rurals. And we continue enhancing, the Rural Canada portals. And, in terms of, outreach and workshop, we planning, to reach out to different stakeholders and also interact with National Rural Research Network, as well as a member of the federal families. The proximity measure that I highlighted is basically borrow heavily from the first release of the proximity measures. This was done in partnership with the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporations. And the first release actually is based on amenity-dense neighborhood and is being disseminated by dissemination block. And we are aware, this is not, applicable when it came to rurals. So we try to adjust and, adapt, the proximity to rural audience. And the key element that we consider here is the amenity spare and amenity scare. That means like, driving distance of less than 30 kilometers and, up and more than 30 kilometers. But we, exploring at this point different options, 15 kilometers, 25, and so on. So this release, the first release of these proximity measures, which is called also quality of life, if you permit the term, is anticipated to be released next month. And that is going to be released in the rural map viewer. So what are we expecting as an exploratory project to expand the rural data? We basically took on the non-for-profit business in rural area. We released the first version of this database last year, and we're planning to release the second non-for-profit database earlier next month. And this basically provide valuable information in terms of count, revenue and profile employment. And the main data source for this non-for-profit database is the BR, the business registry. And the type of information we produce is can be classified by geographic levels, Canada and, as well as the province, by NAICS, as well as by the industrial classification of non-for-profit organizations. The small area estimation technique. This is a new initiative. Actually, we took this year, and the goal was to be able to apply this technique to the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. And we released that on February the 10th, the 1st. And we just basically took for this initial release one questionnaire from the surveys. And our release actually was based on self-contained labor area, but also the data is being produced by good producing as well as service providing sectors. One pillar that we aim to tackle during this fiscal year, but the time did not allow us to do, is to be able to compile data from the census of population from 1981 onward. And our aim is to build a community and regional database. This database is going to comprise of more than 30 census variables and can be valuable for, to support the research and analysis, specifically on social and economic condition of Canadian communities. So the first release of rural Canada non-for-profit was, as mentioned, was released actually last year. And key insight from this database show that in 2019, there were over 130,000 active non-for-profit in Canada, of which nearly 22% were located in rural Canada. These businesses basically employ more than 12% of all non-for-profit employee and were responsible for about 7.3% of revenue generated by these businesses. So another fact that we observe is most of NPO were concentrated in Quebec, Ontario, and Alberta. And the first release of the database was accompanied also by an infographic, which summarized, the key finding that we observed from building this database. In terms of small area estimation techniques, there is the work underway by our colleague from the LFS, and the aim of this is to be able to provide employment and unemployment rate, and the aim is to be able to release that by self-contained labor area. Self-contained labor area basically is a geographic area where people live and work in the same area. Actually, That is the definition of self-contained labor area. So the application of the small area estimation technique to the Canadian Survey of Business Conditions, why we decide actually to implement. As you know, there is a growing demand for reliable small area estimate, but the sample size are too small to provide direct estimate. That is the main reason. But also additional reason is when you conduct a survey, you won't be able to cover all area. For some area, if you don't see, for example, estimate, one way to be able to supplement that is to apply this, small area estimation technique, and that is the technique actually we use in order to do at least exploratory, experimental actually project, and this is based on the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. So the release that we released was in rural map viewers, and when you go to the rural hub, you will be able to access this rural data viewers, and you see, for example, the small area estimations for the region that you are interested in, and you will be able to see in the map what is the number that are being produced by using this technique. So in order to implement this small area estimation technique, you have to be able to rely to alternative data source. For our case, we rely on the business registers, the census of population, as well as the linkable file environment. And the data that we release is by self-contained labor area, and as well as for good and service. So the first release actually focused on three wave of the Canadian Survey and Business Condition for 2022. That means first quarter up to third quarters. We're planning to release also to apply the same technique to the fourth quarters at some point, but we will keep you posted on that when it's going to be available. So the main question actually that was tackled is to be able to take, we basically took one question and to see how businesses allow teleworking in their allow employee to do the teleworking arrangement. That was the main question that is being tackled in this exercise. So here I just want to show you the question actually we took in the map. As you can see from left to right is showing the result that is coming directly from the Canadian Survey on Business Condition without applying the small area estimation technique. And as you can see here, this is actually depicted from first quarter of 2022 to the third quarter of 2022. And the yellow here is where the result from the survey reported that is 0, and the gray area is where there's no sampling. Actually, there are no informations, and the red is when the report from the survey show 100% have the teleworking opportunity to their offering teleworking opportunity to their workforce. So by applying this small area estimation technique, we were able to supplement, the missing part by using synthetic type of informations, and also adjust for the part that is showing 0, or for example, the stream, the one. So this is basically, the beauty of applying this the small area estimation technique to supplement, where data are missing. And we're planning to implement the same technique to other surveys in the near futures. So as you know, the census of population as well as the census of agriculture have been released during the 2022. And the main idea of showing this slide is to show you what type of data that can be retrieved from StatCan. And this, as you can see, is from housing, statistic, business type of information, health, and so on. all these information can be broken down by CMACA. So for some of them, I take the case of the Canadian Housing and Statistic Programs. This is the database actually we're using for the snapshot, part of the smart shot. And our goal is to be able, for example, to group based on the definition of rural in a small town that we're using here and break it down by urban rural. So wherever is left, we consider that is rural in a small town. And the part that is going to be CMACA that we consider as urban. So looking forward, what we're planning to do, we continue extending rural disaggregation to statistical programs. But in order to do that, yeah, we need definitely to facilitate dialogue with rural stakeholders. And our goal is to be able to implement a shared rural data strategies. So we're going to provide a link here, email inbox. For those who are interested on reaching out to the Rural Data Initiative or seeking professional opportunity, please, you have the opportunity to send us, through this inbox. But if you like also to be added, because we're building to put together, it's a mailing list to inform, of our releases. So if you are intended to do to leave your email, please type, in this MS Team chat, and we'll be able to gather this. So additional resource, as we can share after the presentation, the slides for today's presentation, so you will be able to access and see what are the the resource that are aimed to provide disaggregated levels intended for rural audience. Alternatively, the data service centers can be also reached if you have questions or any type of information that you're seeking to collect or gather from Statistics Canada. There is one way also to reach out to these folks is the data service centers, and they can be reached by just email them, or you can use the toll-free number that indicated here, and they will be able to provide the support. Thank you. If you have questions, yes, please. And this is finish my talk.
Great. Thank you so much, Mohammed, for the presentation. I noticed there's one question in the chat, but please feel free to ask questions either by raising a hand or putting it in the chat. I think this question was primarily addressed in the chat, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to respond as well. So there's a question about understanding where and how the data is collected.
Yeah, that is a good point. Is a good question. Like I mentioned earlier, when we started the project, because producing data without, for example, putting somewhere and make people, aware of where the data is put, that is crucial to us. That's why we launched this rural hub. So the rural hub, when you go to the rural hub, you will be able to see the type of analysis that we produce and launch, as well as the database. There is always a link there to guide, to take you through the database that we release. So
your keys for a moment.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like someone might be unmuted. Thank you. I'll just post a link to the Rural Data Hub, so those interested can take a look at what Mohammed is speaking of. There's another question here. So will any of the rural data be available at a dissemination area?
I don't quite understand the question.
Yeah, no, for the dissemination areas, I can jump in. It's a geographic concept that is used by the census of population for some of the product that they disseminate. We in some of our product we use the dissemination block, which is a smaller geographic unit. It's basically a city block in an urban area, in an area bounded by roads in a rural area. So it's really the smallest possible unit, and we use that for the proximity measure. So
Yeah.
you would be able to maybe do some reaggregation and get to possible similar indicator at the dissemination area level. But again, other than this specific product, because it's extremely small, the dissemination area as a geographic unit, you wouldn't find many statistics at that geographic level, other than the census. Again, census of population, I should say.
Yeah, and we're planning for the proximity measure to be able to disseminate that by dissemination block. This is the only project that we do have now that planning to be disseminated at that level.
Perfect, and thanks, Alessandro, for jumping in and clarifying that. Were there any other questions for the presenter? Seems like a lot of people have put their emails in the chat, so there's definitely an interest in staying up to date with the activities.
Maybe just a comment from me. It's again, it's Alessandro Alasi. I see a lot of people putting the email are from municipal or provincial government. Looks like from the email. We would be very interested in having feedback from you about what you find useful for your work in terms of data. So again, any suggestion or comment coming from municipal or provincial stakeholder would be very much appreciated. Thanks.
And the aim of this building this mailing list is also to inform you of upcoming releases that we may have. And it's a good way to interact with you guys, hear from you, what kind of improvement that you want us to make. So we are here to listen to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for adding that additional point. Looks like a lot of people are taking that to heart and adding their emails into the chat right now. There is another question inquiring about the labor force survey. So the question is, so the labor force survey will also be used to have indicators in rural areas.
Yeah. Yes. They are currently producing some statistics for urban and rural. I think they have a disaggregation of large urban, medium, and small town or smaller urban. But the work that Mohammed was showing is about the indicator by self-contained labor area, which is a concept that is equivalent to the CMA, CA, Census Metropolitan Area, but applied to rural areas.
Yeah.
So we hope to see that release soon, but we don't have a deadline for that.
Perfect. Well, were there any other comments from anyone in the audience today, or did anyone have any further questions for our presenters? Perfect. Well, it looks like there's a lot of interest in hearing more about where this work is headed. And yeah, it was really great to have you come today and present to our group. I know rural data is of interest to many community data program members. And so I definitely learned a lot through the presentation. I do see an additional question that just got put in the chat. So is there currently data on immigration within the rural and small business site?
Not I'm aware of at the data for immigration or break it down by rural urban.
Yeah, the demography division might have something. I think they do annual estimates of population growth, and I'm not sure they have the annual breakdown into type of population growth, natural growth, in migration, out migration, but there might be something related to immigration, but maybe that is not really all external, international immigration. That might be just mobility within the country. So I would double check with the demography statistics division. They might have those estimates by census subdivision.
I guess maybe a follow-up question, is there any plans to bring in data on immigration into the rural data portal?
Yeah, before even answering to these questions, we'll get back to you by, asking, our the social side to see, like, what is their plan, what are they planning to, where they're heading, and if you have additional information, we'll be able to provide.
If I can just make a comment, this is Michael Dieter. I'm also a member of the community data program team. I'm just curious to know what geography Sabine is interested in, because it may be worth checking. We do get data from the longitudinal immigration database at the census subdivision level and the census division level, and in a number of cases, if the sample is small, then data will be suppressed, but the longitudinal immigration database is an administrative data source. So unless you're dealing with very small numbers, you should be able to get some data at the census division level, certainly, or the census subdivision level. But you can contact us to let us know what particular geography you're interested in. And the census, even the census profile, 2021 census profile has a fair bit of data on immigration down to small levels of geography.
Hello, Michael.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for chipping in. I'm kind of new in the position, and I'm trying to understand how can I collect the best data. I'm in a city that is about 60,000 population, and I believe through Star Canada will get most of that through immigration for that size of the city. Now we do serve our social services support a lot of the small communities outside that 60,000, because we're the most populated city within the north of Edmonton. So these small communities, I'm talking about 1,000 to 3,000 people. Will I get that data, or maybe what you guys mentioned, just have to maybe average with what I have?
It could certainly just be, it's worth looking. Just look at the census for right now. I saw one table on StatsCan's website related to immigrant population at the census subdivision level. And it's just worth having a look to see if, I actually have it open. But let me,
yeah, if you could just send me the link, maybe.
I just put it in the chat.
Handy, put it in the chat. Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you.
And so that has data on the immigrant population at the census subdivision level, and you could look to see whether the geographies of interest are in there. And we have in our catalog data, you can look at the census profile, and we have the longitudinal immigration database in our catalog. And I couldn't say for sure if your geographies are in there, but you can just have a look. If you need help with that, you can send me an email. We can look together.
Thank you very much. That's a good start. Thank you.
Okay. Here's my email address.
I can just add one point because the question was also mentioning small businesses, and in our division we have a specific tool called linkable file environment, which is basically business microdata, and we are developing some indicator about the characteristic of the owner. And one of the indicators that some of the demographic characteristic of the owner, I should say. One of the demographic characteristics we're looking at is immigration status, or whether the owner is a recent immigrant. So again, that may be another indicator that will be available in the future. I'm not sure we will have a lot of geographic breakdown, but maybe if there is an interest, we might consider having a tabulation of rural versus urban business and characteristic of ownership. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Alessandro, and Mike as well for adding to the discussion. I will say too, if anyone does have questions that they would like to follow up in terms of helping find specific data tables, please feel free to reach out to either Mike or myself at the Community Data Program, and we'd be happy to start having that conversation with you. I do see another question in the chat. So is there any collaboration work on this project being done with the Rural Ontario Institute, and I guess, or any other provincial partners?
Yeah, we actually had a few discussions with the Rural Ontario Institute, and the aim of the discussion that we had is to try to see, like, you know, what are we working on, what they are working to see, like, not to try to avoid the duplications. And they are working on few type of database. The housing actually statistic is a key element for them, and they ask us, like, you know, if at some point, you know, we'll be able to share the information that we'll be able to pull from the database that we're putting together. But yeah, we'll continue discussing with them and to engage with not only the Rural, you know, Ontario Institute, but also, like, you know, others, you know, regionals or provincial that may be of interest to that.
Great, thanks for responding to that question. Were there any other questions while we're here as a group? Perfect. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Mohammed, did you have any further closing comments, or anything else you wanted to share with the group?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to thank you know, each and every one of you for sharing, you know, their emails. That may be very important for us, like, you know, to communicate with you. And yeah, you know, as soon as we go and this project, you know, we'll be able to update you, and probably holding also very soon another webinar to keep you posted on what are the development that we're making, and also to show result that we're obtaining by, you know, assembling this, you know, information from different sources.
Great, thanks for that, Mohammed. Yeah, I guess we can bring our session today to a close if there's not any further questions. I'm happy to stay on the line for a couple more minutes because I know we're wrapping up a little bit earlier in case there are any further questions questions, but I'd like to give a big thanks to everyone at Statistics Canada for working hard to bring this webinar together, and we're really pleased to have to be able to offer sessions like this. So thanks so much, and we are really glad that you're able to attend today.
Thank you. It's all a pleasure. Want to add something, Alessandro?
No, just say thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, bye.
And I will note too, I know we always get lots of questions about this, but the webinar has been recorded, and the slides as well as the recording will be posted on the CDP website by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tala. You can probably stop the recording now, and then I can edit out this part.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'll say bye now. Thanks, everyone.